Warning. This show features dark subjects which may be triggering to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Chaos Jar. I'm your announcer and the loud and obnoxious one, J Wes Secord. Hey. Next is our host, as usual, with the big bag of facts, Bad Ben.
Hey.
And then, always we have AT Token.
Sitting in a cage, drinking beer.
What you got in beer?
It's not beer.
It's like watching a monkey in a cage just, drink beer.
Rufalin is worth it. Or fluid trazepam, whatever.
As usual, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at BAChaosJar. You can follow me on Twitter and, ask me questions, because I literally have typed, nothing on this Twitter so far. Can you stop? I'm doing a thing!
COVID.
At I'm glad you asked _ Please ask me questions. I want to start filling this thing up. I think it'll be funny to just answer you random questions.
Like why our Canadian guy has tools that sound Canadian.
I was going to say your Y gene is sneaking. Your Y chromosome is sneaking through. You got to fill in gaps?
No.
We're not doing it?
No.
Oh, fine.
No. It doesn't work that way. You can... Did I say Instagram already? I'm getting lost with his thing.
Yeah, Instagram's already done.
Okay, cool. You can follow us on Facebook at Pandora's Jar Podcast. We're almost there, folks. We're almost there.
Almost.
And lastly, we have YouTube. Follow us and subscribe and like on YouTube, because fucking we have YouTube now. You get an image or something.
We are literally available on all platforms now.
Yeah.
No reason not to listen to us.
Listen to us. Shut up, listen to us! And if you want to be a patron, go to patreon.com/chaosjar. And, you put in a couple of bucks, you might get early access to our bonus episodes, the overflow. And it is just disturbing me, you playing with that knife.
Fine, I'll put it away. I was going to ask what that accent was.
And you can also watch the bonus episodes that have come out on our Patreon there.
Listen, we'll get video once you give us something.
Exactly.
I'm going to take over your obnoxious title real quick.
Yeah, don't. That being said, what's going in the jar today?
So today we are going to talk about Iron Mike Malloy.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were doing wrestlers.
It's not a wrestler.
Boxer?
Not a wrestler. Not a boxer either.
Weightlifter.
No. He's not really an athlete of any sort.
I mean, kind of an athlete.
I guess.
I kind of know this.
Professional video gamer.
No, this
Mike
is This is in the 1930s.
They had video games then.
Really? What was it?
Yeah, it's called, it was really early on.
It was a huge hit.
It was a huge hit. Those holographic card things? Yeah, it was the
Video
first, yeah, it was like a virtual game where you had to turn those at a proper it's great.
Why did I just get this vision of Yu-Gi-Oh?
Wow. Follow me, Ben.
Yeah.
I thought he was the one who doesn't listen.
I'm sorry.
We're swapping places. It's been a while.
All right. So, let's start off because this takes place in the 1930s, let's start off with the Great Depression. So
Yay.
we all know that the Great Depression, everybody got really sad and didn't work anymore.
It sounds like our life now.
Yeah.
What we're actually doing is worse than the Great Depression.
Economically, yeah.
So the Great Depression actually was like a fall in stocks and economy. Basically started to take place around the September 4th, 1929, but then there was like an actual worldwide news like stock market crash on October 29th, 1929, known as Black Tuesday. And it was a very bad thing.
Why do we have so many random black days?
They really love us. They really, really love us.
Racist joke aside.
Well, the thing is, like, for instance, Black Friday is not actually supposed to be about a negative term or anything like that. People like to attribute it to, like, this, like, the stampeding mobs and people getting trampled, because that has happened on Black Fridays before.
I thought you said it wasn't a negative
But
thing.
what it actually is supposed to symbolize, it's supposed to symbolize the companies doing the sales going into the black.
Like
instead of being in the red.
Yeah. We're back.
Okay.
So, between 1929 and 1932, during the Great Depression, the worldwide gross domestic product, or GDP, actually fell 15%. So that's a huge shot. Like, if you just compare that to the Great Recession that happened in 2008, 2009, in that year mark during the Great Depression, it only dropped 1%.
Okay.
So think about how much money we lost in the Great Recession, and then think about a 15%, so 14% more dropping.
To be fair, we started like shorting stocks and doing other crazy shit since then. People made a fortune off that thing.
And, it's interesting considering that we are currently in a state where that's worse right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yay, us.
But we're not willing to declare it a depression yet.
No, well, with
we all
Trump
are,
in
so.
charge.
Yeah.
I'm sure when Biden...
until January.
Yeah, and then the new guy will just be a little, he'll just be not aware of it because
he's got a couple months.
He's got dementia.
Yeah.
That thing you can't remember.
I really can't for some reason.
So, the other thing we have to talk about is that during this time, there was also a what's called a prohibition on alcohol happening.
Prohibition?
Yes.
I don't know what this is. Do you know what this is? Shut up.
So, from 1920 to 1933, the United States had enacted a constitutional ban on the production, importation, or sale of alcoholic beverages.
Oh, I'm glad I'm informed now. Mm-hmm. The more you know.
Well, it just all of this kind of encompasses our tale today.
Well, I was playing dumb for the audience.
We're doing history for the fun of it.
All right.
Yeah,
Podcast.
Jesus, you know this. Stop. You looked in the eyes, and you're looking at me, and you're aware of what I'm thinking right now.
You just look confused.
Shut up.
So, it has its origin. Prohibition has its origin spanning actually after the North victory in the Civil War, when social moralism was kind of coming to a forefront. So, like, there was a lot of movements about, like, for instance, a lot of attacks against the Mormon faith were happening because of their their polygamy and such. So they wanted to try and curb it back.
Oh no!
Banned to Utah.
The Mormons got.
They do some pretty awful stuff.
Yeah, they got prejudiced. Ooh, fucking Mormons.
Wow.
Okay.
So
I was almost in that play. Did I?
Is that why you lost it?
Book of Mormon?
Yeah, like I got a Broadway tour audition.
You did tell me that in Toronto.
For Elder Cunningham.
Nice.
Way back when. Unfortunately, I was too early in my my theater schooling to have enough experience to get in. But that was a really cool experience.
Anyways, eventually the movements picked up enough steam, and the prohibitionists that were in favor of it managed to get an act put out called the Wartime Prohibition Act from the U.S. Congress, and it was passed on November 18th, 1918. the act was originally put forward as an effort to save grain for the war effort. But what's funny is that November 18th, 1918, when it passed, was 7 days, literally a week, after an armistice was signed to end the war.
Oh.
So the issue was that World War I was already over, and even stranger, the act came into effect July 1st, 1919. So we were literally months after the war. There was no reason to save the grain for the war effort anymore. But the movement had even more pressure put down, and what was called the 18th Amendment was ratified for the U.S. for the U.S. Constitution, and that's basically what ended up happening. They basically banned the entire production, importation, and sale of alcohol.
I'm glad they have a strong tradition of bullshitting things through Congress.
Yeah.
100 years in cooking.
So, the unintended aftermath of this was that there was a rise of organized crime because, obviously, the mafia and other people got into bootlegging and bringing it in, and they made little, basically, smuggling production trades, and basically had, like, little... people would come over and build little underground shops that were basically bars that were called speakeasies.
It's really funny because I've heard a bit about this, and it's interesting to think about the fact that Prohibition, the illegalization of alcohol, basically led to the rise of organized crime. Organized crime being like a thing, because it was like, oh, we got some things here and there, but now it's like, no, it's a business. Now it's a business. Like,
yeah, and what's even crazier about that is that Woodrow Wilson, who was president when this all passed, had like a huge stock of alcohol. So he actually had to move it in secret, because moving it from the White House when he left the White House was technically importing it to wherever he was going.
Gotta love criminalizing yourself.
And then his successor, I always forget who the successor is after that, but his successor also had to smuggle in the alcohol. So not only is this like everybody's going to pay big bucks for it, everybody's like the rich are paying big bucks to move things around.
It's a long tradition of like single target, economically separated laws. If you have money, the laws don't apply to you.
So these speakeasies, by 1925, had over 100,000 speakeasy locations in just New York City alone. So one city, 100,000, you can just think about throughout the rest of the country as well.
Is speakeasy like another kind of brand nowadays?
Yeah, now it's kind of like a type of bar as well that's kind of low-key. It's still got that like low-key feel, but not really...
what you call a haunt.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Or a dive.
That makes sense.
Dive is slightly different, but fair enough.
Because I've definitely heard of a speakeasy before.
Yeah.
And all the different things that were popping into my mind had nothing to do with alcohol for some reason. It sounds like, that one local fast food restaurant.
Yeah.
The hole in the wall that everyone goes to.
Yeah, like it's
exactly what it is.
You go in the corner and it's like, no, there's no alcohol though. It's just but you get burger and fries. It's a speakeasy.
Speakeasy.
Easy speak. Oh my god.
You can't do it.
What is it again?
A speakeasy.
No, it is a speakeasy.
Yeah,
a speakeasy. You go in. I'm like emphasizing it in a really weird way.
Yeah.
I can't figure out why. But you go in, you order your burger and fries, and I'm really hungry right now, but that's another story for another day.
We're totally not distracted by this.
Yep.
All right, so thanks to the internet, William Harding was after Woodrow Wilson.
Warren G. Harding.
Yeah, sorry. God damn it.
You just read it.
I know. It's terrible. Anyways, President Franklin D. Roosevelt eventually repealed the 18th Amendment with the ratification of the 21st Amendment in December of 1933. So, after 1932, basically when the Depression was starting to come out a little bit,
let's drink more.
It was that they were allowing this, and what's funny is that this actually was made as a move to try and help the economy build after the Great Depression, because I'm sure somebody looked and went, all these criminals are making money, and we could just be making that money. So
yeah,
It is sensible.
You know, it's interesting. I find I've heard a lot. Some of the worst presidents had some of the best ideas for change in their country, and it's like, how?
Everybody's like, no. That's why they're the worst.
But the thing is,
No, they're the worst because they were also assholes. Like Reagan was not a great guy.
No, he was.
but he did have some like things where you're like, oh, Reagan did that? Or at least wanted to do that?
Like second term Obama. Tons of ideas, but stumped by Congress every step of the way. So nothing done.
That's a different
that's the one I'm thinking of. But
yeah.
So, now we're going to come to the main protagonist of our story here.
I mean, loosely.
Michael Malloy. He was born in County Donegal, Ireland, at some point 1873. Even that's disputed, because there's not a lot of facts on who he actually was or, like, his past.
But he was Irish.
He obviously was Irish.
That was the most important part of this.
Don't.
What do you mean, don't? Fuck you.
I wish there was an audible mirror. Just send that right back to you.
No, this is probably my best accent.
That's his voice.
And you don't drink.
No.
Fucking abomination you are.
I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
Clearly.
So, not much is known about his early life, or when he immigrated to the United States, or why he immigrated to the United States, but he eventually did become a firefighter in New York. That's actually in every article. Everything about him is that he was a firefighter at some point.
He was an Irish firefighter.
Yes.
Was he Dennis Leary?
I'm pretty sure he's not.
Because that just sounds like the plot of Rescue Me.
I mean, 50 years later. Well, I don't know, like 60, 70 years later? I don't know.
So, the problem was that Mike loved his drink, which...
and
he was a very well-known alcoholic. Eventually, this cost him his job, and he basically became a vagrant. He had very little friends, no family, nowhere to sleep, no job. He basically just built shelters in what was called a depression colony, which is basically like homeless camps.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
We have them now, right? 10 cities and whatnot.
Yo, I see what you're saying. Either way, oh, God.
So,
it's not a pretty life.
Either in December of 1932 or January of 1933, which was the final year of America's Prohibition, actually, Malloy came into the acquaintance of 5 struggling men. Tony Marino, who was a speakeasy owner, Joseph Red Murphy, who was a bartender at Tony Marino's speakeasy, Francis Pasca, who was an undertaker, Harold Hershey.
Like the wrestler?
Yes. What is the wrestler's occupation?
Undertaker.
What is that?
Wrestler.
He's not a wrestler anymore. He's retired.
Oh, yeah.
You did a
I
hot
just
one.
recently heard that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So Harold Hershey Green, who was a cab driver, actually he owned the cab company that I know, Hershey Green.
He later founded Hershey's Chocolate Company.
Oh, God. And Daniel
anal brothel.
And Daniel Kreisberg, who was a fruit seller. So all these men are like... Most of them are struggling people. Even Tony's bar wasn't doing as well as he had hoped. He did have a lot of gangsters and stuff like that coming through, so that was what provided most of it.
Did he legalize it after it legalized, or no record?
What do you mean?
Well, he owned a speakeasy, and then alcohol got semi-legalized after that. He could go legit.
His bar wasn't operating by the end of the story.
So wait, he had a fruit cellar?
Yeah.
So one of the people that came by and was a friend of his was a fruit seller named Daniel Kreisberg.
Fruit seller, cabbie, undertaker. It's an interesting mix.
Like, what's a fruit seller?
So they used to have like fruit carts that you would go out and buy fruit from.
Oh, okay.
So what the car collides into?
Yeah. What's funny is I don't think It's funny when you think about like how these jobs and these positions, but sometimes nobody's ever actually said their titles.
Yeah.
So like when you hear them, you're kind of like
fruit seller. Like
fruit seller.
What is that a euphemism?
That just seems too straightforward.
Honestly, I wanted to do a joke about like, hey, what if his friend was just a fruit fly? And it's just like with like holding one pear, just bringing it over to sell it.
It's the strongest fly of all time.
Wow.
Strongest fruit fly.
So anyways, these men were all having problems with money, obviously, because of the Great Depression. And so they were trying to figure out a way to make some money. And these men got to know Mike Malloy due to the fact that he had a pattern of frequenting speakeasies, and he actually really preferred Marino's speakeasy, which was called the Mermaid Speakeasy at 3804 3rd Avenue in the Bronx.
It's a little wordy.
Yeah, I know. So they decided...
Yeah, I didn't have much more than that.
So the one night, Marino decided to invite Malloy to drink as much and eat as much as he wanted at no charge.
That's not suspicious.
So Mike thought this was a really generous offer and just decided to take the man up on his offer, and they treated him like royalty. They gave him all the free drinks he could want. Unknown to Mike, this wasn't a kind offer. See, the 5 men were struggling really, really harshly during the Depression and needed some quick cash. So Marino concocted a plan with the other 4 to feed Malloy so much booze that he would succumb to alcohol poisoning. They would then use his body to get a fraudulent life insurance policy scam payout.
Not familiar with Irish people, are they?
So they had managed to get a corrupt insurance agent to make up 3 policies.
Oh, that's not.
But
hard.
only two actually set in. They used Mike under the name Nicholas Malloy, and upon Mike's accidental death, they would gain $3,500, roughly $69,000 now. And Red Murphy posed as Nicholas's brother, Joseph Malloy, and would be the beneficiary. Now, the way that this actually works is that this would be like a double payout as long as it was accidental. If he died of any other cause that wasn't accidental, like if he committed suicide or something like that, it would just be half.
But suicide didn't count back then.
Yeah, suicide wasn't accidental, it's purposeful.
Yeah, but a lot of exclusions include that. So otherwise, I could get a policy and get the family out of debt if I don't feel like
it's interesting because I think there's some, like, don't they have to do a lot of investigation with alcohol poisoning because of the fact that, like, maybe he was trying to commit suicide?
Not back then.
You're also assuming competency of the force and forensics.
And the thing is,
Depression world era where there's not funding.
And the thing is, he obviously, he showed signs of having a hard life, and he was a known alcoholic. So,
it fits.
It just fit all together that if he died, nobody would really ask any questions, and he looked the part of a rough drunk.
Also, you catch an investigator on the wrong day, they're like, it fits, I don't feel like doing the paperwork. Check, we're out of here.
Yeah. Well, that part relies on pure luck, so let's ignore that aspect compared to everything else.
I mean, you can make that happen. A little more sophisticated.
Yeah, these men definitely sound sophisticated.
When we eventually talk about H.H. Holmes, he used to run these life insurance scams like crazy. He would actually dig up bodies sometimes, and then he would use the same corpse to collect 4 life insurance policies.
Wow. How could a family go from solving murder to becoming con artists?
That has to be the ending for Scooby-Doo, isn't it? They just turn into criminals.
No, they just get too high and get over
and crash the van. Oh, that got hilariously dark.
So, away from Scooby-Doo. So
you will never get away from Scooby-Doo.
Tony Marino had actually done this previously with a 27-year-old hairdresser from Washington, D.C. that had moved to New York and fell on hard times. Her name was Mabel Betty Carlson, whom he had force-fed alcohol to, then stripped naked, doused her mattress in icy water, and left her lying in the drenched mattress by an open window during a freezing winter night. She had frozen to death, and he collected the life insurance policy. Her death was attributed to bronchopneumonia and alcoholism as a factor. The men had all reasoned that it wouldn't actually take that much effort to take out Malloy, since he had been drinking for ages, had had a hard life, and looked to be in terrible shape.
She didn't drown. She froze to death.
Bronchopneumonia. Contributing cause.
Right. Because she...
Pneumonia is fluid in the lungs.
So essentially, when she was freezing to death, she drowned in her... And
what I'm saying is, it's a horrible way to go.
Fair enough.
So, on this night, Mike began drinking, and at some point they stuck a petition under his under Malloy's nose, stating that it was to get Marino elected to local office. So,
oh no!
Of course, you're gonna sign this. You're gonna sign these petitions because
I'm awesome.
He's freaking give me free booze. I'm all for it. Like, if he wants to be in office, like,
however, that's so good. I'm gonna be officer of the law.
So, however, it wasn't actually the insurance. It was actually the insurance policies. It wasn't a petition at all.
What?
Yeah, I know.
Holy shit! What a twist!
I know. So Mike signed the policies and then just kept on drinking, and he would drink for most of his waking hours every day, just to turn up the next day to drink some more. Like, he just wasn't. He wasn't even passing out or anything. He was just drinking so much. He was drinking so much, and they just kept feeding him these drinks, and then he would literally walk out of the bar in a straight line,
just poison,
as if it was nothing.
Yeah, but I've seen my dad with a poisonous level of alcohol before he died, and he talked straight.
So it just seemed that there was no matter how much he drank, he just kept on ticking. So this is when they decided to try and speed up the process. So they decided to use denaturalized alcohol, which doesn't even taste like alcohol anymore. Okay. And that didn't help. Yeah, denatured.
Okay, you said denaturalized.
Sorry. So that didn't work. So then they decided to try and add antifreeze to the alcohol,
which is sweet. So some people do drink it,
and that didn't work.
And that makes your kidneys fail. So I don't know how that didn't work.
Yeah, and then they decided to use
4 hours and you're dead.
So then they decided to use turpentine, and he just kept on drinking.
The man is a machine.
So, yet again, Mike would show up the next morning and want more drinks. So then they decided to use horse liniment.
I don't know what that is.
That is basically like the polish they use on horseshoes and stuff.
So they must be losing their minds trying to figure out why this guy's immortal.
Yeah, but this also didn't do the trick. Like, he just kept on living. So they pulled out the big gun and mixed in rat poison with all of this stuff.
Oh, shit.
And the man just kept drinking everything that they threw at him. And
blood thinner on top
eventually, he did start to pass out, so they threw him out into the street, hoping that he would just freeze to death. But the next day, he'd be back to have some drinks.
I mean, this is horrible but hilarious.
Frank Pasca had actually stated that at one point he had witnessed a man die from eating oysters soaked in whiskey. And it is true that oysters that are soaked in hard liquors and alcohol do cause like a deadly concoction. So they suggested that they use methanol, which is alcohol that is crudely distilled from wood.
Oh, like woodworm.
Yeah.
Alcohol. Okay. That's the shit that makes you blind, folks.
Yeah, it actually destroys your optic nerve and is it actually is like a nerve poison. Like, it'll kill. Like,
it's neurotoxic.
Yeah. So they replaced all of his drinks with this and offered him raw oysters that had been soaked in the methanol.
Wait, that wouldn't cut it, though.
What do you mean?
Like, it wouldn't be enough to activate the poison, I think.
So the group decided to, this didn't do the job either. He just ate these oysters and
just soaked it up like everything else.
The group decided it was time to kick it up another notch, and they found an ancient tin of spoiled sardines and decided to make Malloy a sandwich to go with the wood alcohol.
We're doing college frat stories now. This is a college frat dare.
I like the when you said ancient, I was like, you said they dug up an ancient, and then I was like,
oh, they fed him people. And
I'm like, ancient artifact was what I was expecting. It was like, we call upon Ra in order to curse this
page of the Necronomicon.
and then he drank the curse, and nothing happened.
And then the spirit, and then the god inside the artifact was like, I can't even do this.
Yeah,
he morphed into one of the Anubis hunters of the Samurai Jack.
The god was drunk. I can't touch that guy.
I'm not touching this with an 8-foot pole.
So they put the sardines into the sandwich, added some rat poison, broken glass, carpet tacks, and even cut up and grounded the tin into the sandwich. The Irishman ate the sandwich without a problem and even asked for another.
Yeah, but the glass and metal wouldn't kill him for another day or two. Like, that's unbelievably horrific.
either this man is really poor and ready to just be like, oh man, they're treating me like a king. I gotta grow tolerance.
Yeah.
Ground glass is a particularly bad one.
This is when the group realized that they weren't going to be able to poison him. He just seemed to, like, no matter what he did, he just ate and drank his fill, and then would be back the next day.
Like, did they lose money on this guy?
Oh, you're going to find out. So,
I guess they lost
this particular night, it was a freezing cold night in
New York.
It was negative 26 degrees, or negative 14.8 degrees Fahrenheit.
Nobody cares about that.
So what they decided was they let him drink and eat his fill, forcing more and more alcohol on him until he was basically just so done. And then they even managed to get him, get alcohol soaked into his clothes and all over him.
Oh, shit.
And he was barely conscious. They managed to, half walk, half drag him to Crotona Park, which is close to the Bronx Zoo. And they laid him on a bench and waited for him to lose consciousness before ripping off his coat, tearing his shirt at the chest, and pouring 5 gallons of water onto his chest and face. Knowing that even a person in great health would have a difficult time surviving with just barely being clothed, not covered in water.
Like, you'd freeze to death in a couple hours.
Yeah, and on a freezing night, they just left Mike to his fate. Next day, they were astounded to find Mike at the bar again.
I mean, fuck these guys.
Well, the one thing they didn't consider was he wasn't in great health.
The exact quote that came from him was, "Get me a shot. I caught me a cold." So the men quizzed Mike on what happened the night before, and he said that he had woken up extremely cold and went off to his shelter to warm up by a fire. So basically, being that cold woke him up, and he was like, man, I'm fucking freezing. I gotta go get a fire. And he found himself a fire really close to the park or something.
For what it's worth, if you're gonna die, there is a signal that goes from your head to your brain that wakes you up.
Yes.
Usually that's what the alcohol was supposed to cut off.
Yeah.
I think he's so Irish, it goes right through.
Like, honestly, I think he just, because
I
of his
don't mean that as racism, but maybe.
It also just could be, without the racism, it could just be...
there's always the racism.
It could be he just had such high tolerance that even as he was getting tipsy, he was sobering up super fast.
Yeah.
Like his metabolism must have been like zoop right
And
through.
I think they were forgetting that he was a firefighter. So at one point he was in great shape.
Yeah,
so
he must have been a tank. It's worth noting, you don't metabolize alcohol faster when you have a tolerance. It's just your body knows how to deal with your blood alcohol being that high. It just doesn't give a shit.
So the men were all feeling really defeated, especially Frank Pasca, the Undertaker, who had caught a bad cold himself from the night's events.
Fuck you,
So
this is bordering on a Roadrunner Wile E. Coyote cartoon.
Yeah, I think we're past that, to be honest.
Well,
like Acme Corporation kind of antifreeze.
It got to it only gets to the cartoon point because they got injured in the process in some fashion.
So it gets even better because desperation and frustration was starting to set in. So Hershey Green came up with a really much more direct and brutal tactic. Hershey was a 23-year-old Russian-Jewish immigrant, son of a Russian-Jewish immigrant, and he ran the local taxi company. He decided to arrange for a collision with Malloy. He approached John McNally and James Salone and offered them $200 to run over Malloy. When they refused, he then upped he upped the offer to $400 each if they would run him over. Again, they refused.
Good on us, boys.
Hershey realized that he was going to have to do it himself.
Hershey?
Yeah. So, they got Mike all liquored up and set him loose on the street.
Got into his chocolate car.
So Hershey tried to run him over twice.
Like missed?
And Mike somehow managed to dodge these.
Go, Mike!
Then he finally ran Mike down with the cab at 72 kilometers per hour or 45 miles per hour.
Shit, on a side street in the Bronx.
Yeah. Malloy was found on the side of the road at Baychester Avenue and Gun Hill Road in the Bronx. He was rushed to Fordham Hospital, where he was treated for a broken shoulder, concussion, and a possible skull fracture, because back then they couldn't really...
So he took it on the side and hit the side of his head.
Yeah. So when Mike didn't show up the next morning, the group thought they'd done it. They've killed him. So they scoured the newspaper for articles about a collision.
2 days later.
Nothing surfaced. Despite this, they still tried to collect the insurance money, and Joseph Murphy, who was posing as his brother, Joseph Malloy, even went to like morgues to try and see if he could find the brother's body, right?
My fake brother.
But nothing. Yeah. Well, they were unsuccessful in getting the money because Mike spent 3 weeks in the hospital recovering before he resurfaced in the speakeasy, and exact words coming in were, "I'm dying for a drink."
Like the fucking Irish
before he complained about the hospital only giving him milk and cocoa and refusing to let him have a drink.
Fucking Nesquik.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this poor man.
So the men were worn out from the seemingly indestructible Mike Malloy and decided to switch victims. Because they even had like fake identification for Nicholas Mallory. So as long as the identification is on the body, they can claim that that's Nicholas Mallory. So
they'd only done this once before, though, right? Or is there like a different thing?
Marino has only been linked to one once before.
Okay,
he wasn't even convicted of the other one. So, it just happens that their next victim was also an out of the luck Irishman. They decided to hit Joseph Patrick Murphy, a 31-year-old out-of-work plasterer.
That could not be more of an Irish name.
I know.
Our Irish stereotypes come from the Irish immigrants that went to New York. Like, that's why.
And so, he was found in a depression colony, just like Mike Malloy was, in a little shack that was there. So he actually had built himself like a shack shelter in the depression colony. They ran him over with a cab after planting identification for Nicholas Mallory on him. He was discovered in the South Bronx. He had survived being run down and recounted that he had been getting drunk in a speakeasy in Harlem. When he was offered a free ride and free booze, in the cab were 2 men and one familiar face, Hershey Green. So there was also a witness described in the papers, and this is directly from the papers, not my own word, before anybody freaks out. He was described as a Negro.
That's it?
Yeah.
An Irish Negro?
No, it was just a Negro. It was a Negro witness.
The witness was okay.
Yeah. Who said that he witnessed Murray being run down by a cab and quickly jotted down the license plate, which turned out to be Green's cab.
So did he get booked?
So he did get charged with an assault kind of thing.
Oh, because there wasn't manslaughter back then, right?
There is manslaughter back then, but he got charged with assault. Along with the
fucking white people.
Along with the identification that was stuffed into his pocket, there was also a next of kin listed as Frank Pasca. So Murray survived with internal injuries, broken ribs, and a broken left shoulder.
Oh, poor guy.
So with this failure, they decided to switch back to their original target, Mike Malloy.
Because they're good at learning their lesson.
Yeah, and because Hershey got charged. So they were like,
he's out now.
So on February 22nd, 1933, Joe Murphy and Dan Kreisberg, booked a room at 1210 Fulton Avenue, roughly half a mile away from the bar. That night, Malloy was brought into the bar, given as much drinks, food, the whole royal treatment as normal.
They're going to do the same as the girl, aren't they?
Eventually, he was drunk enough, and Murphy and Kreisberg walked him to that room at 1210 Fulton Avenue. Once there, the duo threw Malloy's half-conscious body onto the bed, held him down as they unhooked the hose from the tube for the gas light, and forced it down his throat.
No.
They switched the gas on, and within 20 minutes, Mike Malloy's life was over.
Oh, man.
I know.
I mean, it wasn't going to be a happy ending.
So,
I honestly...
you're really rooting for the guy.
You really do.
Yeah.
Fuck, when people step up their evil game.
So, overall, the gang, later known as the Murder Trust, had tried at least 10 attempts and as much as 25 attempts at killing Malloy.
That's
including
enough for life.
A less documented. I actually found 3 articles that mentioned this, but I couldn't get the full story, and I wish I could. A less documented botched machine gun attempt that he escaped.
So
I just feel like at some point they must have like pulled out a machine gun and been like, and it just went around him.
Yeah, like it was the.
I mean, given your average guy with a machine gun, you couldn't hit the broadside of a barn.
So, if we have, I keep telling our fans, asking our fans to fucking do something with the ideas we come up with. Can we
I'm
literally
sorry for your jadedness.
Can we literally have some fans, someone who's like really good with animation, legit like animate a Looney Tunes sketch of these guys trying to kill
That's
Malloy?
a lot of work.
But
Someone do the voice acting at least.
I can do the voice acting, and they can get voice actors if they're animators. They've probably worked on it a lot. But because I've seen on YouTube where they've gotten like a group of people coming together to do a project. Yeah. I would love if someone made a Looney Tune cartoon of it.
Drive-by.
No, of all of it. It's got enough bad events or failed attempts.
Maybe not the ending, though.
No, not the ending, but it's got enough failed attempts, like up until before they switched it. Yeah, that they could easily fucking. I'd see it. It could be alone. A 10-minute fucking, maybe a 20-minute sketch of them just fucking trying to kill this
This
guy.
is Animaniacs. That's what this is.
A little bit, yeah.
So, another occasion that isn't as documented either is that at one point, I guess they just tried beating him over the head.
That has never worked on an Irishman.
All I can think to myself, too, was he probably just in the morning was like, I really drank a lot. I need another drink to take the edge off.
Also, famously, alcohol stops you from clotting, which would stop an aneurysm from forming. You'd get the brain damage, don't get me wrong, but you won't die.
Well, he's already got brain damage from all the fucking drinking, so...
But that takes time to sink in.
So, the next morning, Dr. Frank Manzella was called to the room, and for a $100 fee, he signed a death certificate. Back then you could just get a doctor to sign a death certificate.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
So he signed a death certificate for Nicholas Malloy. Cause of death was lobar pneumonia. With the fake lobar.
What does that mean?
So it's a different type of pneumonia, and pneumonia is actually like pneumonia. It's funny because in the middle of it, I almost said leukemia. So anyways,
we're all going to hell.
This type of pneumonia isn't like the bronco one. It's actually more in your
in the lower depths of lungs.
Leukemia, pneumonia.
Lobar leukemia pneumonia. Lobar pneumonia is a type of leukemia. Anyways,
because that guy's fucked.
So, with the fake death certificate in hand, the gang managed to collect the insurance policy from one of the policies from the Metropolitan.
So it's like $69,000. You said it was.
It's $69,000 if they get both insurance policies, but at this point they've only got one so far. Frank Pasca even tried to impress the insurance agents by writing out a $400 check for a lavish funeral for his dear friend. In reality, he popped Mike into a $10 coffin and buried him in a $12 grave. He didn't even have the body embalmed.
That guy.
So on March 18th, Tough Tony Bastone was shot dead. Bastone was a local gangster and an acquaintance of the murder trust.
I'm sad his last name isn't Bastoni. Tony Bastoni.
I know.
Owner of the
But anyways, he spent quite a bit of time at the Mermaid Speakeasy, so Marino's bar.
Yeah.
And a man known as Joseph Maglione was charged with his murder. And Joe Red Murphy, one of the murder trust, was taken into custody as a material witness. Because of this...
As like a hostile witness or something?
No, as a regular... So back then, if you were a witness, they would take you into custody. They would take you
for
in.
protection.
Yeah. So because of this...
helping is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, so because of this, Prudential, the other insurance company, couldn't track down Joseph Malloy to pay him out for the death of Nicholas Malloy.
Fuck you.
And this raised suspicions and started an investigation. It also didn't help that rumors and tall tales had begun to swirl around the city of speakeasy, like all the city's speakeasies, of Mike the Durable.
Fucking, he's a legend.
This brought the death of Mike Malloy to police's crosshairs, and they began to investigate the stories.
Actual investigation.
And eventually they found his grave, and the district attorney, Sam Foley, gave permission to exhume the body. Because when they buried him, they didn't bury him as Nicholas Malloy, they buried him as Mike Malloy.
And they didn't do a proper burial from what you said.
Yeah. So they exhumed the body, and it showed clear signs of murder. Mike had the telltale cherry red discoloration from carbon monoxide poisoning, and his death was marked as asphyxiation from carbon monoxide. This actually would have been covered up if Frank Pasca had bothered to embalm the body.
That's what was... Yeah. Did the doctor get indicted, too, for a false...
We'll actually go through that. And this is actually a fact that he should have known as an undertaker. He should have known that embalming the body would have erased this.
But they were so fed up with this guy, they're just like, fuck, get rid of him.
Yeah, and the greed, it would have cost money to embalm him, and they wanted as much money as they
$22 bucks, they got rid of him.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So, there was also massive dissent in the murder trust, because they couldn't split the money fairly amongst everyone. See, with the free booze, free food, payouts, because they were paying people off,
they lost,
and planning, the murder trust had spent $1,875, so roughly $36,000, trying to get the full $35,000 payout.
So about half of it, and they only got one of the payouts, not two.
Yeah.
So they lost money on that. Fuck you, you cunt.
So this caused a lot of squabbling, and information began to seep out from the resentment. So, like, somebody would complain to this person.
Leaking.
Yeah. Also, they were, like, kind of telling their wives and stuff like that about things, because you come into this big, massive amount of money, who the fuck is this person?
So these guys have unraveled.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the trio of insurance suspicion, police investigation, and the internal squabbling kind of led police right to their door. Like, right to where it was all started. Marino and Pasco were arrested. Murphy was already in custody as a material witness due to the different murder. Hershey Green was also in custody due to some gun charges.
On top of the assault charges.
As was
shit.
Daniel Kreisberg, who was arrested for robbery and assault earlier in the week.
So these guys have been up to business for years.
So the five were all charged with first-degree murder.
Thank you.
Dr. Frank Manzella was also arrested and charged with accessory after the fact.
Good.
John McNally and James Salone, the men who refused the money to run over Malloy, were taken into custody as material witnesses.
Good.
Joseph Maglione, who killed Tony Bastone, managed to plead down to a manslaughter conviction in exchange for testifying against the murder trust, because apparently he had also witnessed some of these attempts to kill him.
Sounds made up, though.
But he had attempted some of these things.
Yeah, but it sounds like a plea deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
So, the trial began in October 1933, so they arrested everybody on March 18th. So, Hershey Green had flipped and turned state witness in order to receive a conviction of first-degree assault for the taxi incident, and this allowed him to escape the death penalty. He received life in prison.
Okay, that's fine.
The other four were trying everything they could to exonerate themselves. They turned on each other. They would try to drag witnesses that were testifying against them into the plots, being like, he can't be a witness against me because he was part of it.
Right.
And it was just a huge amount of attempts to try and ruin the credibility.
Which ruins their credibility.
Pasca's lawyer tried to argue that he was just an undertaker and had nothing to do with the plot. This was dismissed as Pasca had confessed to his role in the murder back in May to try and get out of the death penalty.
These guys deserve everything.
So, while Murphy and Kreisberg were basically trying to blame each other for the murder, so like, no, he gassed him. No, he gassed him. Like, all of them except for Marino claimed that Tony Bastone was used to intimidate them with a gun into being part of the plot and was supposed to actually be paid out. Like, the insurance money wasn't ever going to be paid to any of the other ones, only to Bastone and Marino.
So they all collectively came up with the same bullshit story.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Tony Marino was the only one that didn't take this tactic, and he went down a different road, because obviously it wouldn't work if he was like, well, I was under the direction of Tony Bastone when he was part of the payout. So he took a different tactic and pleaded insanity. His lawyer managed to bring a doctor to the courthouse who stated that he had had a childhood fall, and that injury combined with a recent bout of syphilis had caused Marino to become abnormal.
Syphilis after 2 decades does cause extensive brain damage, so there is a merit to that, but from what I understand, the mental asylums of that era are significantly worse than prisons.
So this was countered by Sam Foley, the district attorney.
I mean, they should have let him go.
Who brought in a neurologist who stated that it was a faked abnormality. So he didn't actually have any abnormality.
True, but I still think he should go to the bedlam because he fucking nightmares.
Sam Foley had also uncovered all the evidence about the Betty Carlson thing and started looking into deaths and disappearances around the Bronx that could be linked to Marino. But he was never convicted of any of this. It was just things that they thought they could link him.
Yeah, but it's still attributable in the trial, so they would have dumped his sentence combined. Not that you're supposed to, but they do anyways.
On the morning of October 1933, the four men were found guilty of first-degree murder, and according to the New York Times, Marino glared angrily, Kreisberg swayed, Pasca...
Swayed?
Yeah.
Like, we're dancing to the music, swayed.
Kind of. Pasca winced.
What?
And Murphy remained inscrutable. So basically, he just stood there stone-faced. And as we'll find out later, he might not have known what was actually happening around him.
Oh, really?
All right. So I've been staying really quiet for this whole time, but it was for a reason.
Uh-oh.
I've been laughing internally at Token here, who is bordering on being a stereotypical black woman at the movie theater.
I mean, you're quiet, so I gotta pick up the slack.
Yeah, so I'm laughing as he's like, "Oh, good. I'm glad they got him. Oh, that bitch better not be getting away." Like, you have...
I mean, I got a personal stake in this, to be fair.
Get the doctor!
He was just... I'm just sitting here listening to him. It's like, oh my god, are they going to get the doctor? Oh, they got him!
For what it's worth, in the modern day, doctors typically don't get prosecuted. Even if they're at fault for stuff like that.
I'm making fun of you in this way. Your pedanticness means nothing.
So,
cheers.
back to the story. Sam Foley told the media outside of the courthouse that day, "I don't want to give the impression of gloating over these convictions, but once that's the district attorney prosecutor.
He's one of the kids in the hall.
Yeah. But he's also a professional wrestler, Mick Foley.
That's true.
But so, anyways, I don't want to give the impression of gloating over these convictions, but once more, a Bronx jury has upheld the local reputation for common sense and courage. I think it is a proper verdict for a most cruel murder, which was inspired by nothing more than sordid greed. So, all four of the men were sentenced to death by electrocution and shipped off to Sing Sing prison. In the prison van, the four men sang songs together.
Of course.
They sang songs on their way to Sing Sing.
Yeah.
Before they'd be sinned on the electric chair.
You're unfamiliar with Sing Sing, I take it.
It's a rough prison.
It's not like Rikers, but
I get it, but there's a tongue twister there.
Yeah.
It's not a tongue twister, it's a bad pun.
No. It'd be a tongue twister.
I mean, let's hear it then.
What? Well, I couldn't finish it because there wasn't enough, but it was, they sang songs on their way to Sing Sing. Like, everything there was literal. It wasn't a pun.
Hands up. You got me.
Yeah.
So, Hershey Green was sentenced to 5 to 10 years for the assault charge against Murray.
He's got multiple.
So he's already got the life imprisonment for...
so it's a token
for Malloy, but then Murray, the other one that they hit, he got 5 to 10 years, which...
That's it?
Yeah. Frank Manzella, so Dr. Frank Manzella, was convicted of a lesser charge of failing to report a suspicious death.
That what? So he got probation, basically.
Basically. And he gets to keep his medical license, so...
Wait, what? Really?
Yeah. So on June 7th, 1934, so
that's a bribe and a half.
I love how the death penalty has now become like this much longer process, because this is like they were convicted in October 1933 and now it's June 7th, 1934, it's execution day. But
20 years to a thing?
Now it can be like 20 to 25 years.
That's what I imagined, yeah.
Tony Marino, Dan Kreisberg, and Frank Pasco were all executed. Tony Marino was 28 years old and left behind a wife and one child. Kreisberg was 29 and had a wife and 3 children, and Frank Pasco was the youngest of the group at 24 at this point. And in an odd coincidence, his wedding had been conducted by James Barnett, who was also the judge at the murder trial. Could you imagine?
I love it. He might not remember.
How's the wife?
So,
swimming in alimony.
Red Murphy was supposed to be executed with his cohorts, but 2 hours before the execution, he actually received a reprieve
Really?
by the Lieutenant Governor of New York, Michael William Bray.
That's not easy to get. How the fuck did he pull that?
New evidence had surfaced that he was actually born Archie Mott, an orphan.
No offense, but who gives a shit?
So, the history for Archie Mott is that he was committed to the Connecticut School for Boys, where he escaped in 1929 due to all the years of childhood sexual abuse. So they think that he has like a mental issue, and that he actually is just limited intelligence and limited mental capability.
Well, fuck.
This brought up a doctor who has been treating him in prison for being unbalanced.
Well, I mean...
The man who filed the reprieve was District Attorney Sam Foley.
Really?
Yes. So...
That's an interesting change of heart.
I guess when he found out the history, he probably went, then we probably shouldn't do this to a man who probably doesn't know what the hell's going on.
Well, given what we know about what priests and schools have been up to lately,
yeah,
he's probably felt it himself. But
so,
Jesus Christ.
However, the stay of execution was only denying the inevitable, where he was denied a retrial and was executed on July 5th, 1934, at the age of 28. Yeah.
I thought with a stay of execution it's permanent.
Now it's different.
Oh, okay.
When you're on death penalty, like when you're on death row, you actually have something like 5 stays that you're allowed to use.
Yeah.
So if they give you an execution, they can give you a stay and then you use an appeal.
Yeah.
But the stay can be used up to like 5 minutes before.
Yeah,
There's actually a guy who got his like last meal, and he was the whole time was like, I'm not even going to do another. He refused his automatic appeal. But you're allowed...
There's an automatic appeal.
There are automatic appeals for death row.
Wait. Okay, we're going on a bit of a tangent here, but is that for those who are mentally incompetent?
No.
I know that was a thing.
So originally the death penalty... We're kind of going off the rails a little bit, but originally the death penalty didn't have these automatic appeals, but then when they reinstated it, they felt that it had to have an automatic appeal because...
It's that serious.
Yeah, we're taking a life. So... in order to do it constitutionally, they gave them the ability to fight for their life, and
which you could decline if you admitted your guilt.
And you get like a certain amount of appeals or something like that, and those 5 stay of executions or whatever. However, the problem with that too is that there's also habeas relief. So eventually, like, you can state that I've been doing really well in prison. I'm much more balanced. Like Jeffrey Dahmer, if he had ever gotten if he had ever been put on death row, would probably been able to go for habeas relief, because once they put him in prison and he was on his meds for those few years, he actually would talk openly about how he felt he was a monster because of what he had done while off his meds.
I mean, there is a case for rehabilitation, but us as a society aren't willing to forgive. Which, I mean, not my case to judge. It is the purpose of prison, though. It is ostensibly to rehabilitate.
Yep. Yeah. This is not your case to judge. It was the guy who married the one dude.
Yeah.
I don't know the case, unfortunately.
Sam Foley, the prosecutor, eventually became even more famous, not because of this case, but because of the prosecution of Richard Hauptmann, who kidnapped the Lindbergh baby.
Oh, shit.
He later became a judge and passed away in 1951. So over 10,000 people showed up to his funeral.
So he was a politician.
Yeah.
Let's be real about this.
Mike Malloy's story became pretty famous. He became known as Iron Mike Malloy.
Is that why we
Magic
know this
Mike
guy?
Malloy?
Through this politician.
Magic Mike.
I know.
I mean, who wouldn't pay for a drunk Irishman? I want to see that.
I love how in this he is. Like, he also became known as Mike the Durable, Mike the Indestructible, and the Rasputin of the Bronx. So if you know the story of Rasputin,
yeah.
Eventually we will do that story too, because that's a great story.
That really is.
Because he basically survived just as many attempts as this. Like,
I mean, consecutively, but yes.
Yeah. So he was reburied after his autopsy in his $10 coffin, but was given a new charity plot. But there is no headstone, and he was left unmourned. So there's nobody to miss him.
Well, nobody knew him, right?
Yeah. A documentary titled Name Your Poison was made in 2015 and features the story.
Poor taste.
Yeah. And that's the story of Mike Malloy.
Shout out to the Irish, but god damn.
Looney Tunes cartoon.
Yeah.
Of course.
Someone needs to there needs to be a collaboration. You know what? I'll talk to Sagraff. I'll tell him to tag the right people, because he's always on YouTube, so.
He's our YouTube guy. Shout out to Secord.
This is Tony Marino, and
we have pictures.
Yeah, this is Tony Marino and Frank Pasca.
Yeah, they look like what you'd expect.
Wow. God, when I watch the movies and you're like, man, they always find the perfect people who look all like they came from this era, I was not expecting them to be that accurate.
I mean, you draw from the source, right?
Not always.
You're right. But I feel like creativity is a lost art.
I've seen various things involving Greek society, and they're all overly muscular.
And this one is a little more
thinking.
This one is a little more gruesome. This is Mike Malloy at his autopsy.
I don't want to see that. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I kind of just want to see Mike Malloy as a person.
That was him when he used to live on the street.
Also, there was a picture of him.
Oh my God! Does he ever look like a stereotypical Irishman? Even with
that is the picture of the Depression.
Even with those curled tight lips and everything.
Yeah. Well, you know where that comes from.
No.
Let's just skip it.
Anyways.
Yeah.
So.
Wait, why are we skipping it?
It's not fun. Let's just not go over it.
That's our whole show, is the not fun and dark.
I mean, give the man some dignity.
I love how low the voice waves for that were. Like, give the man some dignity. It's like super low.
You do realize he died bordering on over 80 years ago, right?
And time changes the honor of a person?
Right, I forgot you're a samurai.
The furthest thing from Japanese.
All I can think about now is you in a samurai outfit being like, my honor.
My honor.
Okay, now I'm not the racist one.
Well, that was a fun story.
I mean, I wanted to do something lighthearted because, it's around Christmas time, so.
Yay! Drink your heads off, folks. Don't take the cap.
I feel like this would have been the time to do the Wendigo story, because it's a creature involving
snow,
winter and snow and stuff.
Yeah, but not many people can empathize with that.
It's funny because
you need people to empathize with a cryptid involving winter theme?
I mean, we all empathize with alcohol. I think alcohol consumption has tripled since the latest run of Human Malware.
Around Christmas?
I mean, it's going to get higher. Most of us don't like our relatives.
Yes, because so alcohol is more themed to Christmas than a winter spirit from,
these days,
native lore?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, in fictional America land.
Do you listen to yourself sometimes? I wonder.
I mean, I'm not associated with Christmas much, so I can't really say.
Well,
as far as the Christmases I've seen, everybody drank their heads off.
And so you immediately associate the alcohol with Christmas before the snow.
No. But before Wendigo, yes.
But the Wendigo is themed around ice and snow.
I know, but 2 tiers of difference.
No, it's not.
I'll let you have it.
There is no let. This is literally
I don't think you know what literally means then.
Anyways.
We'll save it for the overflow. You can argue with me then.
At some point, I think in the next week or two, we'll end up talking about a Christmas crime or something. Or some sort of Christmas creature, like we could do Krampus or something.
Krampus or the abominable snowman.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm the one.
What about nipples?
Tweak. All right. So anyway, don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and review. And you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at @BAChaosJar. Follow me on Twitter and ask me random questions at I'm glad you asked _ You can follow us on Facebook at Pandora's Jar Podcast. We're so close, folks. We're so close. And you can be a patron at patreon.com/chaosjar. Pay us some money and get early access to our bonus episodes. And while you're there, watch the bonus episodes that are already out. And you should definitely go to our YouTube channel and check out these. We'll have, our logo or something on the page. And, it might be a little easier to access if you're not used to the podcast formula, which is weird that I'm, kind of pitching that during our podcast. It's kind of weird. But, shut up. Anyway... and all of this will be in the show notes down below. Did I miss anything?
That's all, folks.
Good. All right. You guys have a good night.